Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I'm your host, Tim Matthews, with my co-host, Mo, the Powerful Woman Parks.
Hey.
I bet you love hearing that, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
So this is, I think, the last podcast we did. You were on that too. A woman's take on how to break the cycle of codependency.
Mhm.
So this topic kind of feeds on from the last one as well, which is cool because we recorded the last one last week. Doug is still in the Bahamas. Look at him. Survived a boat trip that he may tell you about, where he almost died. And this, I think today, in fact, Erin arrives there. It's the first vacation those guys will have taken away from the kids, just together in a few years because they got young kids. So, yeah, I've not even spoken to him, which is cool. I'm sure they're having fun. So, anyway, what we want to talk about today is the idea that women want to be the center of a man's world, right? So, the truth about women wanting to be the center of your world, right? What do you think about that, Mo? Like, do women want to be the center of a man's world?
So every movie that I can remember possibly growing up, every Disney movie from basically 1990, because I'm clearly younger than you, to about like 2010, the woman, she does something, she gets the man, and there's this idea that the whole movie was driven around like him getting her, him having her in her, what is the wrapped around her finger. And what they never tell you when you're a kid and a girl watching that is you become to think that that's the reality, like that a guy's world should be all around you. And then you get married and you realize that is so much weight. And it's very weighty to feel like I'm responsible to tell him he's valuable. I'm responsible to tell him he's enough. I'm responsible to make sure that he's worthy, that he's all these things. And it becomes so much that we just crack under the pressure.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, some guys listening to this, they're going to be in different places in the relationship, right? Some guys are going to be in a position where the relationship may be strained. Maybe they've been handed divorce papers. Maybe they've been asked to separate. Maybe they're just not getting along and it's kind of hostile. There's arguments. And I think, I imagine anyway, the idea right now of, hey, she doesn't want to be the center of your world. You get to shift that. I could imagine for some guys that might be a bit frightening. Like, hang on a minute. If I stop making her the center of my world right now, then how are we ever going to fix things?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think a big piece of that is the way I see what I want his center to be is I want it to be apart from me. Like I want him to work on himself, be himself, and manage his own value, his own worth, his own expectation around whatever he chooses to value that around, whether that's self, God. I mean, I don't care, but it's not going to be me. And I think that when you put that pressure, it's almost like this worship of the woman that it's like it's too much. It's just too much weight. And so what I would say is like develop security in and of yourself, develop worth in and of yourself, value in and of yourself. Um, and don't
Mm.
let anyone else take that.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of the things I'm very grateful for is that Amelia and I quite regularly spend time apart, right? Be it because I have an alpha reset, like this Friday, obviously, we've got an alpha reset. So I'll be up there from Friday until Tuesday it finishes. And then Tuesday night, I'm staying over at this hotel and just relaxing and, some of the things that are going to happen there. So, but she's gone to Leeds today. So today is Tuesday. So she's gone. She'll be away Tuesday night, Wednesday night, come back probably late Thursday. I'll then see her briefly Thursday, head out Friday. So I won't really see her until probably next Thursday properly. Which is honestly, it's great. And not that I don't enjoy spending time with her, I do. And at the same time, just to the point of not making her the center of my world, being okay with taking time apart Be it, like a couple of weeks ago when I went off to that spa, or when we go to Costa Rica or whatever. I think one of the ways that men could break this cycle of wanting to make the woman the center of the world, because often the guys stop doing things for themselves, right? They put their needs last. So often guys that we work with tell us, "Hey, well, Tim, if I was to have time, I don't know what I'd do in that time. I don't know what I'd use that time for. I don't know how I'd fill my cup. I don't know what I enjoy," because they've lost touch with it all. They've just focused so much on the career and the family and the wife that they almost kind of become as though they're running on empty. And then they look to the wife to then fill them up and give them the validation and give them the affection and give them. So her becoming the center of the world is she becomes that source of, well, she becomes a source of their needs being met, essentially. And I think, again, if you're listening to this, you think, hang on a minute, if I stop making her the center of my world, this could work against me. I might look as though I'd actually give a shit. What if she starts saying, well, you don't care about me? What would you say in response to that?
I've uttered that phrase a bunch of times. So, I mean, it's really better for you to answer if I were to say to you, like, oh, you don't care about me, or you're always away, or you never spend time with me anymore. How would you respond?
Um, if that was said, um, I'd bring some humor and playfulness to it. I'd want to know if it was true, like if it rang true for me, like if I actually swung the pendulum the other way and I'd stopped making her the center of my world, but to the point whereby I actually am not spending time with her and I'm actually not creating an environment where she feels emotionally connected and safe to me, then if she said that, I'd have to address it. And I'd know it was ringing true because I'm thinking of times in previous relationships when I've done that. You kind of know you're doing it. You kind of know that you're not prioritizing the relationship, and often it's because you don't really want to. So when people said that in the past, sometimes it's made me think, you know what, you're right, and I actually don't want to, and that's a bit of a red flag, right? Whereas if I am, and it's just a bit of a shit test. Emil actually did it. So before I went away last week, um, was I about to leave or was it the night before? Either way, I was supposed to be away for the weekend. Changed the plan, so I was supposed to leave Sunday, come back Wednesday, cancelled that, and decided to go away Friday. So left Friday morning and come back Saturday. So I shifted it up, told her what I'd done and how I changed it, and got to Friday and she's like, "Oh, so you're leaving us again, are you?" I was like, "Yep." It's like, "All right, and then you'll be leaving again, will you, when you go to Alpha Reset?" Like, "Yep." And I just leave. Or I might, be a bit playful with her. I'd see. But the point is, in terms of, a woman wanting to be the center of a man's world, to your point, the guy having his own interests, having his own hobbies, and pursuing those and doing it with a sense of decisiveness and taking a stand for himself and what's important to him, whilst also making sure if you've got kids, you want to make sure the kids are sorted and everything's, you've got agreements in place that you're fulfilling your responsibilities. And then instead of going, oh no, I'm a bit tired, I'm not going to go tonight. As a guy, you just got to go. You've got to be at a night out with the guys, be it playing football, be it whatever it is you're going to do. Even if you don't want to go, it's very important that you still make an effort to go for yourself. Because if you don't go and you sit there on the sofa all night next to your wife, who's probably wanted some space herself as well, quite honestly, and has probably been looking forward to you going, then, again, you just choose to make her the center of your world. It just doesn't work. It just kills a polarity. And it just neutralizes a relationship. And before you know it, you can just become more like friends than lovers.
Yeah, I would say when you do that and you're in a space where you're pursuing your hobbies, one, she feels like, oh, good, he has some other people and some other things that he can depend on. One that are and I would also recommend that those are things and influences that are feeding into you and feeding into your energy and building you up, not places that you come back and you crash and then you expect her to take care of you because then you're just doing the same thing. It's like you never left and you're putting a weight on her and you've now been gone. And so the things that you do, the hobbies that you choose have to be things that fuel you and give you energy because you be fully there, fully invest in that hobby. And then when you get home, you have the energy to fully invest in her, in the relationship, in the marriage. Because there's nothing worse than being a woman whose husband during hunting season goes out every weekend and does that thing. And then he comes back and he sits on the couch and he watches TV and he flips through the channels and he doesn't have any energy left to give to you. My husband's not a hunter, so I feel like I can say that safely. But I do know many wives who sit there with the kids all weekend after, uh, and it doesn't energize him, and it doesn't really do anything to feed into the relationship.
Yeah, great point. Um, so, okay, women wanting to be the center of the man's world. So we've dispelled that. The idea there is that no, that isn't true. Women do not want to be the center of your world. It's important you have other interests, other hobbies, so that you are not placing all your needs on her, right? You go do your thing, you come back, you feel energized, so you can reinvest as well that energy back into the relationship or the household or whatever. Um, what are the points? Because I know you wrote some things down before we started. What other points have you got that you think is important to share here? I mean, one of them that we both were discussing before is the idea as well that when you stop making her the center of your world and you start to have your own pursuits and you have your own hobbies, you then become less available as well, right? Which by default can increase the desire and the mystery. It can bring about the passion essentially into the relationship because by default, um, if you're away for a weekend, for example, right? And you maybe aren't as contactable for the weekend. She might have sent you a few messages. You can't reply because you don't have signal or whatever, right? I was like, no, that's not good. Um, but at the same time, it can create a level of desire, right? It can create that level of attraction because the guy all of a sudden isn't quote unquote available. And the woman then wants him to be available. Um, to just speak into that for a moment, if you will.
Yeah, I think being the woman on the other end of the messages, is that what you or like the lack of the scarcity, the lack of him being around?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it scarcity, but the idea that as the guys do this and they start to pursue their own things, how it can raise a level of desire and attractiveness within the relationship because he stops becoming so available to her all of the time. Like, what's your
Okay.
take on that?
Yeah.
And well, yeah, what's your take on that?
Um, I think it is pretty dependent upon like the marital dynamic and the relational dynamic. Like if you have kids versus if you don't have kids, I think that's a factor too. Because excuse me, when he is away doing his hobbies and you have kids, like you feel a massive burden. Versus if I didn't have kids, I'd be like, yes, I get time alone. And so like those are two different. And when I have time to think, I'm like, oh, I miss him. Like, oh, he's
Yeah.
gone. I don't get to hang out with him as much. Whereas like I also miss him when I have kids because I'm like, oh my god, I need help.
Yeah.
And so there's like a missing of an appreciation for what he does while he's there, like while he's when he's not there, because I see how much work he does to help me around the house. And it's like, oh man, I really like not just need him for what he provides me, but I need him because of who he is and who he is to our family. And so there's like an appreciation that grows and also a affection. And to speak to that also, if that time becomes very long, that like we can shift from I miss him to I hate him really
Mm,
quickly. And so knowing those boundaries around what you said earlier, just you knowing that you're away just to be away, and to avoid versus like you being away because you really need to fill your cup and fuel your tank.
Yeah, and some of the things that guys have done in the past, like in the Brotherhood, let's say they go on one of the Brotherhood trips. We've got Costa Rica coming up. Oftentimes, what the guys will do either before or after is they'll give the wife some space. They'll say, "Right, I'm taking the kids for a couple of days. I've booked you into the spa or whatever. Go do your thing and whatever it is, right?" So I think again, it's not making her the center of the world because it's not like doting on them and having them around and all that stuff and just wanting to hang off the woman. Um, but it's saying, hey, look, you go do your thing. I'm going to be away. Um, I think as well, I imagine that it, as well as building attraction and all those things you said, it can build respect too for the guy.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'd say like if particularly if like a guy was going to an event like this as a woman, I'm like, please go fix yourself. But
Fix yourself.
to be really blunt, but no, like if the hobby is something that I know is like building him and growing him, then I see he's committed to himself, which makes me feel really secure. And ultimately, like that's what we're looking for. I'm not saying like, okay, go do all the things that, work on you. But if it's like, if I'm not used to my husband getting guitar lessons, but I know he has a guitar and I know he's thought about it before, but then he actually does it. It's like, oh, you're a man of your word. Like you really see the value and you want to invest in something like this. Like that's really cool. And I can respect that because you're pursuing something you really like, even though we have a pretty busy life.
Yeah. So, okay, let's give these guys some practical steps. Let's say these guys that are listening or watching resonates with them. They feel like they have been making the woman the center of the world, of their world, and they don't understand why it's created so many problems. They're doing everything right, quote unquote. What are some practical steps these guys could take to flip the script on this?
Yeah, I can think of two off the top of my head. One, get in a community of men that are doing life well, that are in better marriages than you, because you're able to share with them your struggles. You're able to share with them stuff that's just going right. Just shoot the shit with them, and just kind of and just having a place where you have good influences around you, and also just dudes to be friends with. And then secondly, another practical that I would say is figure out what you like, figure out what fuels your tank. Like if you don't know, then that's a big issue, and if you know and you're not doing them, that's another issue. And if you know and you're doing them and they're not working, then that's another issue. And so just know where you're at in that process and think about it, journal about it, and respond to it with action.
Yeah, I love that. The final one I'd say is book something for yourself. Like as Doug always says, at the moment of insight, take massive action. If this is resonating for you, I would, if I was you, take a risk in getting it wrong and just book something for yourself. You know, be it a weekend away or a night away or a golf trip or whatever it is, be it guitar lessons, whatever it is, right? Just book something for yourself. And you know what? You may try it and you may not like it, but just the act of you going and doing it for yourself is going to say a lot more about the kind of man you are. And also, it's going to build up your self image way more than it is you just thinking, well, what's the right thing? Is it this? Is it that? Is it, before you know it, you don't do anything. Just book something, whatever it is, just go and take some action and just see where it lands.
Love it.
Anything you want to share before we go?
Um, I would say like one last thing, know which guy you are. Like, are you the guy who spends tons of time away from your family and you don't really like that doesn't fuel you and you come back exhausted? Or are you the guy who like feels like you can never leave your family because you don't know what you really love and so you just stay there and you're making her the center of your world in a different way?
Nice. Awesome. So, guys, thank you for joining us. That's a wrap for another episode of the Powerful Man Show. Like Doug says, at the moment of insight, take massive action. Until next time, have a terrific day.